So the question is, are we ever going to be friends again?
Do we still have chemistry? Will we be able to make each other laugh again?
Well, today on this episode, we're going to discuss how you know if your marriage is worth saving
This is marriage. WTF.
with Kenyon and Michelle. Warning, we are not licensed professionals. However, we are experts on saving our marriage. Viewer discretion is advised. Maybe you're in a similar situation and you're trying to figure out if you should save your marriage or not. Is it time to call it quits? Here are a few questions that you should consider when trying to make that decision. Number one, are you and your spouse still friends?
From the first night we met, we had an instant connection. Except the more I got to know him, the more I was convinced he was gay. I mean, he cleaned, he sewed, he ironed, he dressed nice, always smelled good. I mean, he was super easy to talk to. Truly thought he was too good to be true, so I figured he had to be gay. I remember telling him, if you're gay, that's totally fine. We can totally be friends. I just didn't want to be one of those women who ended up on Oprah someday because her husband finally admitted he was gay. I mean, so anyway, he's not gay. I would say, like, even through our ups and downs, we've always remained friends.
We are. We're absolutely still friends. I say that because when we're together, we still have a pretty good time.
Yeah, we do. All right, so number two, do you and your spouse still have chemistry? We had to ask that. Yes, we do. However, it had dulled over time. We both could kind of feel that. I guess it's always kind of felt like that Jerry Maguire movie, though. You complete me. I still felt like it was there, but I was also preparing myself for moving forward if he no longer felt the same.
We do. We do have chemistry, both in public and in private, I think, which is why
Hmm.
people from the outside never really knew we had
Oh,
anything going
yeah.
on. Um, but, living at the speed of life, so to speak, we were void of,
Hmm.
of real moments where we felt close to each other. They were pretty few and far between.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, number three,
Hmm.
are you still comfortable with your spouse?
That's a loaded question. So, as of December of 2018, I was not. I guess, growing up, I never, like so many people that I've come to know, I never felt like I was enough. I was never enough for my mom, for my dad. Neither one of them wanted to be in my life. Um, I was raised by my grandparents. So when things hit the fan with us in December of 2018, I completely like reverted back to that I'm not enough feeling. Yeah. I was very confident in myself when we met. I was 23 and just graduating college. And I've maintained that up until like this past December, following some incredibly devastating real talk and admissions from Kenyon.
Nah.
And he'll go into that. That's his to tell. But when he said some things to me, I went blank. I went numb. I couldn't process anything for a while. I truly have no idea how long I'd sat there. It could have been 5 minutes. It could have been over an hour. Once I kind of came to, I remember thinking, okay, well, I'm not allowing anyone to make me feel this way ever again. So we met 3 weeks before I graduated from college, and I already had a full time job lined up at the local hospital. Within a few months, I was planning to travel within my occupation. Like I had a plan. I was going to be traveling. We met, and my life quickly turned into helping Kenyon realize his dream. He had just finished playing basketball overseas and really had no idea what he wanted to do with his life. So during our first year together, which was our engagement, he worked as an assistant manager at Foot Locker. During the next 20 years, it would be spent helping him figure out what his passion was and how we were going to make a living. especially since 4 months into our marriage, we found out we were expecting twins. So at that time, he was coaching college basketball at a junior college, which that lasted for about 3 years. He had a brief opportunity to coach an NBA developmental league team while working on his master's degree before the owner then decided to shut the team down after just 1 year. He then went into a fundraising company for 4 months, followed by a pharmaceutical company. After a few years with the pharmaceutical company, he then went into the dental sales industry, which lasted for about another 5 years. He also had a brief stint with a few different financial planning companies, insurance companies, an apparel company.
Like a jack of all trades.
A little bit, a little bit. There was one point where we actually counted that you had 7 different jobs.
At one time?
Yeah, at one time.
That is true.
Yeah.
Like, how many jobs do you got?
Workers. So he was able to do some contract work for the Big Ten Network as a sports analyst, which then led to some broadcasting for the NBA D League. Right around that same time, he started his own AAU basketball program because apparently we were bored. We'd also welcomed our 3rd child at that time.
I was kind of all over the
A little bit. A little bit. The AAU basketball program was great, except that we had, unfortunately, not partnered with the best business partner. He was quite dishonest, and he ended up breaking us financially. So we had to let the AAU program go after just 5 short years. We would actually need a whole other YouTube channel for that whole experience. He then went back to a couple of different pharma companies, but was fired from the last one. This led to an incredibly stressful time for us, our lives financially. But for the first time in his life, he couldn't find a job. And that lasted for about 7 months.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, you think with a college education, you're able to find something, and it was hard, and it was depressing, and that did not help the mental rabbit hole that I was going down into.
So at this time, we were relying solely on my income and some unemployment, which was not nearly enough to sustain the busy lives of our 4 athletic kids, because during that time, we'd adopted Demetrius.
But you forgot, I also was doing private basketball skill lessons too. So
yes,
that might have helped a little bit. Sorry.
What was I doing at this time? Well, initially when we had the boys, I stayed home with them while he was coaching basketball. It would cost too much to have 2 babies in daycare for me to work part-time. Plus, the small hospital that I was at just didn't pay very well. I'd always want to stay home with my kids until they got to school, so I felt very fortunate that we were able to do this. We lived in just a 2-bedroom apartment at that time, and our twins brought us so much happiness that it didn't even matter.
Yeah.
Plus, we knew it was just temporary. So when the boys were 18 months old, is when Kenya went to work on his master's degree full-time, and that's when he coached in that NBA developmental league. And I went back to work full-time in the hospital, and, work in a hospital, you're taking call, working holidays and weekends. So that was tough for me. That was not really in my plans, but again, it was temporary. After 5 years of working full-time, I was able to work a weekend option package. So that's when we welcomed McKenna, our 3rd child, into the family in 2006. I then took a position at another hospital, which allowed me to work at home, which is where I've been for the past 5 years. So that's been a blessing. And I'm still in the medical profession. I feel like I gave up a lot of myself over the years. It was all about trying to afford the kids' activities, making sure they were happy and had everything they needed while supporting Kenyon and trying to find himself, what he was passionate about, and what he was going to do with the rest of his life. I'm going to be honest, I quit putting on makeup. I work from home. I don't go anywhere. It gets pretty pricey, even the stuff you just buy from Target. Made no sense to put makeup on daily. I couldn't find time to go to the gym on a regular basis with the stress of everything. Plus, turning 40, our bodies tend to change a little bit. So having a desk job, And then I was also put on Prozac. He kind of stressed me out a little bit. And then a bunch of female changes. I ended up putting on 40 pounds. I'm also never someone who needed affirmation from people on Facebook or Instagram. I was still okay with myself because I knew what I was sacrificing for our family. So when my husband told me that he was looking at other women, no, I was definitely not comfortable with him. Today, I'm comfortable, still comfortable with me, and he's no longer a selfish.
Yeah, that is so true. I believe I've always been comfortable with Michelle, but over the years, I wasn't comfortable with myself. And that was something that I never addressed. I won't put it all on this, but my confidence in myself always came from my ability to play basketball, or my ability to coach basketball, or my ability to talk about basketball. And I love the fact that Michelle sacrificed for the family. And while I was trying to figure things out, I'd always been kind of a fly by night person. And, in this situation, I felt like my name would carry some weight, especially here in Iowa, being that I played for the University of Iowa and those kind of things. But, I took her for granted, and I became consumed with what I wanted and not what she wanted or what was best for the family. Probably one of the lowest points in my life was when I was at the junior college and I didn't get the head coaching job. And that crushed me because I felt like I was the best candidate for the job just based on what I had done the previous 3 years.
Well, and the reason they didn't give it to you, remember, it was.
Yeah, they said, well, we see bigger and better things for you. But in that moment, when you put so much time into that, and that's what you're passionate about, when someone tells you that, it's not really a good
Right.
reason. And I remember coming home and we just,
Oh man, that
but
was tough.
but that was one of those times when living in a 2-bedroom apartment with our twins was the best thing for us, because I
They
remember,
had us
yeah, we
rolling.
laughed so much then. But I still was in a dark place and I didn't know what to do. So like Michelle said, I was doing some freelance work for the Big Ten Network. I got a couple gigs working with the NBA Development League. When my contract with the Big Ten Network wasn't renewed for reasons unbeknownst to me, that was another crushing blow, because the feedback I was getting was
Oh, it was
great.
phenomenal.
I mean, people loved me on the Big Ten Network. It was convenient. It was fun. Chris and Keegan got to go to games with us, and
It was a nice
yeah, it was a
paycheck.
lot of fun. Yeah, the paycheck was pretty good. Now I feel like a failure, and so then obviously with the Chris and Keegan playing basketball, it was great for us to start the AAU team, because that's, I always wanted to coach my boys, and this was a great opportunity for us. Once again, questionable business associations led us down a path where we had to dissolve the company. We were about $50,000 in debt.
Which didn't count us cashing in our savings.
Yeah, and so
And
we
retirement.
we had cashed in a lot of retirement stuff like that. So you talk about stress, and then myself just not knowing where I fit in. It was tough, and
And you
that
were
was,
keeping it all inside.
yeah, I didn't talk about it. I felt, once again, like we said in previous videos, like what she didn't know didn't hurt her. So I wasn't telling her about all the turmoil that was going on inside of me, and that was the worst thing I could have done, because now I started packing on things to cover it up, and it just wasn't. It wasn't good for the family. It wasn't good for me, and it definitely wasn't good for our marriage. There was a lot of self-loathing. I was embarrassed, when people would ask questions about, like, why aren't you doing this or why aren't you doing that, and I just didn't know how to answer them. I always put it on somebody else. Always because the Big Ten didn't want to do this, or it was because of this. But I definitely had a feeling of failure and worthlessness. Like, I just didn't know. I don't know. I just didn't know what my value was, not only to the family but to the world, I guess, so to speak.
What your
And
purpose?
so I was closed off. I didn't express my feelings to her. I was self-medicating between alcohol and, I don't know, any over-the-counter stuff I was taking to sleep at night or to reduce stress. It just wasn't good. And that just led to a hitting rock bottom. And I was faced with the reality this past December of losing my best friend and losing a person that has supported me through everything, who'd been there through thick and thin, who I know loved me unconditionally, but I had just completely closed her off. I had to look deep inside, and I had to figure out who I was. And who I was, who I am, and who I wanted to be, probably more importantly. And that goes back to Brandon kind of opening things up. But, I had to really look at what it was I was going to do for the rest of my life to not only make up everything to her, but to make it up to our kids and then just be the best professional I could be in whatever it was going to be. And so, that was probably the toughest thing for me was to be able to make that distinction and then make the choice and move on.
Yeah.
I love this woman. I'm so in love with her. I'm glad we made the decision to save our marriage for sure. So, question number 4. Do you still make each other laugh?
We're laughing now, but I mean, we've always made each other laugh. I could not imagine anyone else making me laugh more. I mean, I'm talking some like serious, ugly face, tears streaming down, maybe even some drool, deep, guttural laughter.
And the guttural laughter typically came from me hurting myself,
Oh,
whether it was
yeah.
when I stood up too fast and hit my head on a cabinet door and split my head open. But
There's
yeah,
literally a
yeah,
chunk of brown skin
yeah,
still on the corner of the cupboard.
that was bad. That was really bad. But yeah, it's usually at my
I
expense
mean,
of
once
even
I
having.
knew you weren't going unconscious, that's when I laughed. I mean, I made sure he was.
Right. But, when you make each other laugh off things, especially things that made you laugh when you first started dating, it's an indication that you two are meant for each other. We actually turned into 2 TV characters that we watch and make us laugh the most. So Monica
Monica,
Geller and Chandler
Chandler
Bing.
Bing.
So question 5 to think about. Do you still have the same beliefs?
Our belief system was huge for us. Without like discussing it with each other, we both felt the need for deeper meaning, more of a spiritual connection. Because in the busyness of our lives, we've drifted from our faith. I had planned to attend a church in our area that had been around for a while, and a lot of friends had been recommending it to us for years. We just neither one of us really pulled the trigger, so I had planned on attending that. I hadn't said anything out loud about going, but I planned to go by myself like the following Sunday. But Kenyon had told me that he was planning to go to that same church, just kind of out of the blue. So I told him, I was like, oh, well, that was my plan too. So he's like, well, do you mind if I go with you? So this was just another stitch that was bringing us back together.
And reestablishing our faith in our lives has been monumental.
I didn't see that coming.
No, in our new journey. For me, I asked her because my thought processes are so different now. I'm like, she always saying, I can't believe you changed. Like she gives me this look of like astonishment. But it's been pretty natural. It's been
Yeah.
very natural. But going back to it, we had drifted from our faith and in the same instance drifted away from each other. And I can't tell you how many times I felt like I was in control of my fate, like I was trying to plan things out. I was relying on myself, and there's only one power that you need to believe in, and that is the God Almighty, the universe, however you want to say it. Um, that's where you have to have your focus to one get true balance in your life. So our lives continue to be enriched because of us prioritizing things the way they should be. I honestly wish we had sat down before getting married and been taught from the scripture about the covenant of marriage, my role as a husband, as a father, her role as a wife and a mother. It makes sense that a book that's over 2,000 years old has the answer to life and marriage today. It is. It's definitely something that we read every day. We send each other text messages, but it's just a matter of reaffirming our faith every day, and in doing so, we reaffirm the love and
Yeah.
our commitment to marriage.
Yep. So number 6, do you still share hobbies, have the same interests or things in common? And I would say that we do. We both like to watch college basketball. We enjoy reading the same books, listening to the same audiobooks and podcasts, watching movies together, traveling, stuff with our kids. We now have awesome conversations about our spirituality and personal development. And, like we said earlier, we still make each other laugh.
Our hobbies and interests have always revolved around what our kids were doing. Did that mean that we were always together? No. a lot of times we're going in opposite directions. But this YouTube channel that we've started has been a joint venture, and it has allowed us to grow closer together and really take from each other and learn from each
Yeah.
other. She's definitely shown me patience because I have a tendency to kind of want to do things like here. I don't want to learn everything I have to. I just want to know how to do it. And she's definitely given me patience on how to do that. So. Question number 7. Have you tried everything?
So, a series of events were going to have to happen in my mind if we had any chance of working this out. We definitely need to have a therapist who was going to be honest with us, no matter how hard it was going to be. Kenya was going to have to get really open about everything, not just some stuff. In my mind, he was going to have to dive deep into his childhood to understand why dishonesty was so easy and automatic for him, why he had this constant need to always help women who he thought was in need of help, and why he was always seeking approval from women and just constantly needing attention and affirmation.
We honestly hadn't tried everything. I had gone to a counselor individually, and that proved not to be very effective for me, which we visited in a previous video that we talked about how to find the best marriage counselor. Michelle had always tried to educate herself as to understanding herself and how she came to be and how she didn't want to repeat some of the
Right.
things that she saw in her family growing up. She took courses in college. I didn't. And she always seemed to have a working understanding of who she was because of her experiences. I definitely needed to learn why I was the way I was, and it definitely was going to take a professional for me to start to unravel and put that puzzle together. Okay.
It is now time for the marriage WTF challenge.
So what that is every day we want you to tell at least one person that's close to you something that you sincerely appreciate about them. Pay close attention to their reaction. How did he or she feel? Pay close attention to how it made you feel. And then comment below with hashtag Appreciation Nation.
Showing appreciation to each other has made a big difference for us. Just letting each other know the little things that we appreciate. So remember, we are here because our marriage is worth the fight.
Our family is worth the fight.
And so is yours.
So remember, subscribe, like, and share this video.
And we will see you in the next marriage WTF.